Well, I mean, first, I might have to give Denver, credit for, they came in there. They had tremendous adversity that they faced coming into this game. Had concern Wednesday, as far as, the way we've come off some successful weeks, and, the message was don't take the cheese, and frankly, we were outcoached, we were outplayed all the way through. So this is the first time I felt clearly our energy didn't exceed our opponent, and that's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely shocked. As I said, they whooped us on every aspect. They beat us, and that's not something you ever think about or ever envision happening. But something we'll learn from. We'll learn from every aspect of it: offense, defense, special teams, situationally, especially. And we've just got to be better. We've got to play a cleaner game. We've got to start faster in a noon game like this. And they did a better job at it and got on us fast. And we were playing from behind, and we weren't able to do anything.
Classic example in Dallas yesterday of what happens when a team starts feeling pretty good about itself and thinking that the opponent that is limping into town isn't very good. This is one of those moments where you need Bill Parcells to be constantly on his players all week long, because those Cowboys players weren't ready to play. They thought they were just going to show up and win. They stole a game Sunday night without Dak Prescott. Hey, Dak's back. We're good. Just listen to everybody on TV and radio and read the newspapers if there are any newspapers. Everybody thinks we're great. The Broncos are lost. They gave up their best player. This is a preseason game for us. This is nothing. We're going to be lounging on the sideline eating hot dogs by the middle of the third quarter. And it was 30-0 before the Cowboys actually scored any points, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is one of those where you get tested a little bit to find out, at least in that week, and will it have any ramifications going forward, of what happens when you start from behind the eight ball. You look at a couple of teams. I just look at it with Baltimore and Minnesota. Baltimore, coming off the bye, looked like they were still asleep, but they fought and came back. And that's what you kept waiting to see out of the Cowboys. As Denver started to pull away, you're like, all right, well, the Cowboys are a better team. They're going to start to score. They average 30 points a game. They're going to start to do it, and they didn't. So, first of all, again, credit Denver and that defense. By the way, as we mentioned, without Von Miller, but when he left, the numbered sack leader at that point became Malik Reed. He was inactive for the game, didn't even play. Their old line got obliterated in this game, Denver's, with injuries. So they were one of those mash units out there, yet they just kept rolling it up on the Cowboys. And to me, that was the interesting thing, is the Cowboys, who overall are a better team than Denver, could not stop it and turn it around. And sometimes it happens, but a lot of times we see the better teams able to collect themselves, catch themselves, make whatever adjustments they need to make, and come back. But you didn't get it. You have a quarterback, who gets balls dropped on him. You have a quarterback who overthrows players. You have a quarterback who doesn't get a running game going on one of the better running attacks in the game of football right now. So all those things add up, and who kind of collects it? That's when you start looking around, Mike. You start looking around and say, who's going to be that guy? And everybody will look at Dak, who missed the last game and came back and say, that's our leader, so let's start making plays. But then you got to make plays around him. You got to catch the ball. But again, as I said, you see overthrows, or you see a normally great rushing team getting stoned and not getting any good runs at all. So that to me is what I looked for in that game, is who's going to be kind of the catalyst, and it never really happened. And first and foremost, credit Denver. Because, again, they're in that division where just one loss is separating, two teams with 3 losses, 2 teams with 4. So you never know where it's going to go. And how about that game? Drew Lock, we find out before with the COVID protocols, he's out. And Teddy Bridgewater couldn't even do his normal pregame warm-up because there was an error with his test. So, I mean, there were so many things stacked against Denver in this one, yet sometimes that's when you circle the wagons the most and come out and have a good game.
Season low in points, 16 for the Cowboys, yards 290. They had been on a tear, especially offensively. There was so much talk over the course of the past week about how they were a Super Bowl contender in the NFC. They haven't been to an NFC championship game since 1995. The way they played yesterday, they won't be back again this year. The question now becomes, how do they rebound from this? They have the Falcons coming to town. sneaky good Falcons, who are now 4-4, a team that we didn't expect to be very good. And then after that, 5 days apart, at the Chiefs and at home against the Raiders on Thanksgiving. So the Cowboys have some big games coming up if they want to continue to hold where they are. Now, they're still locked in as the 4 seed. That's the good news. There's no way they're going to blow that division. And as I say that, I'm thinking, watch, now they're going to blow the division. It would be a stunner if they blow that division. Let me revise that briefly. The question, though, as of last Monday was, can they get number 3, number 2? Can they maybe get number 1 in the NFC? Now, after yesterday, we're like, okay, 4's fine. They get a home game in the wild card round. It'll probably be that Monday night game on ABC and ESPN, and with the Mannings present, it'll be a high-profile, big ratings game. They'll have the 5 seed come to them, the Cardinals or the Rams or maybe the Saints. Big game. Maybe they win, then they have to go on the road and play a much better team. And look, they can still – they're capable of so much more than what they did yesterday. When you put it on coaching, and I put it on coaching, I think the coaching let them down, let them get complacent. They are better than what they were yesterday. And now the challenge for the coaches this week, Mike, is to get them to understand they're better than what they were yesterday, and they better get themselves back to it quickly.
So a couple things there is I have belief that they'll still be, I think, close to, if not what we've seen of them. Because one of the biggest differences, you have a team like Kansas City, who this entire year, Mike, has not looked like the team we've seen in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. And we keep scratching our head wondering and saying, can they regain that? And they're not going to regain it on a consistent level, I don't think. Maybe we'll see bits and pieces of it. The Dallas Cowboys, we've seen them be great this year. We have seen them with a high-octane offense and a defense that was better than last year, though that's not saying a whole lot. But they are a much better defense this year. Micah Parsons, what he's doing has been incredible. So we've seen it out of them this year. So I am way more willing to say this is a blip on their radar, and they'll revert back to more of what they were consistently through most of the season, as opposed to what we saw on Sunday. So that's number one. And number two, listen, I get it with the coaching, that the coach is responsible for the game plan and motivating things. As a former player, Mike, I only take that so far. You are a professional athlete. You have some veterans leadership on that team. If I need the coach to motivate me and to make me not be complacent, and we as a team, especially veterans on that team, can't see that for ourselves. Now, I agree that could work in tandem, and the coach can remind you and help you along there. But I still put a lot of that on the players. You know what you're supposed to be doing. You got a lot of, 30 and up year old veterans in that room, and high 20 guys who have been around for a while that understand the league and understand what they're supposed to be doing. So while I'm certainly willing to put some on the coaches, I am also one of those guys that players need to look in the mirror as well and say, what did I do differently, or what did we not do as players that we need to do better?
I would just love to know, looking back at the week that was, whether the warning signs were there that the Cowboys were becoming complacent, that they were letting their heads get too big, and whether the people in position to realize it and correct it, whether it was team leaders, whether it's the players themselves, whether it's the coaches, when was the moment that they were setting themselves up for what happened? Because I have a feeling it didn't just happen yesterday. The seeds were planted. As we discussed earlier, it's your routine, it's your rhythm, it's doing everything you're supposed to do. Did they do everything they were supposed to do last week in the aftermath of stealing a game in Minnesota without Dak Prescott? That's what I would love to know, and the only people who know that are the ones who are behind the curtain. We got to give the Broncos some credit here before we move on to the next game, though.
Yes. They're
They're above 500, which has not happened for them very often since they won Super Bowl 50 6 years ago. They have a chance to get to 6-4 if they beat the Eagles at home on Sunday. Then they have a bye. But my goodness, down the stretch, they have 5 of their division games lurking. So if they're going to win that division, they got every opportunity to do it. 5 games against division rivals after their bye when they come back in late November and face the Chargers at home. And, you talk about tough places to play. Denver is, as the weather turns, depending upon which day you get. One day it'll be 70, and one day it'll be 7.
Right. Yeah.
But that could be an advantage for the Broncos down the stretch. And after what they did yesterday, they've shown they're capable. The question is, how consistent can they be? But it's too early to write them off, too, Mike.
Yeah, and two quick things on that. I was just in Colorado covering Oregon State at Colorado, and it was 72 degrees in November. So it is beautiful there. But you're right. It could just as easily have been 7 with 2 feet of snow. And the other thing I'll say is, who do you trust in this division right now, Mike? Who do you trust? I mean, Kansas City, we all thought was the best team coming in, but they've been anything but themselves that we've seen in the last 2 years. You trust in the Raiders, you trust in the Chargers. I mean, so in all honesty, when you look at that division, can you point to a team and say, oh, yeah, I believe that team's going to be incredibly consistent the last half of this year? I don't know if you can point to a team in that division that you can say that about. So it truly could be an up-for-grabs division.
I feel like the Chiefs are the one that I trust just because of recent history, and they still have so many of the same people. And if they just keep groping with their right foot, they're eventually going to hit the gas pedal. And they're going to wake up one day and they're going to look at the standings and say, everything's set up for us to win this division and get back to the playoffs, and they could be very dangerous in the postseason if they figure out what it is that has held them back this year. At some point, they just are who they are. But I think that they're the ones that I would trust if they're all bunched together like this, because we know from not too far in the past what they're capable of doing.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.